if premiums jump, people can't afford it, they don't have health care. And then the burden on people who are sick and need that coverage is higher.
I tell you what the Democrats want. The Democrats want health care for people who are non-citizens. That's driving up health care costs too.
Don't change the subject from the subject.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out a tense exchange between Kaitlan Collins and Jim Jordan on CNN. You'll notice Jordan dodging questions throughout the conversation. It's pretty obvious as you watch. Stick around to the end and let me know in the comments what you think about his responses. All right, let's jump into the clip.
My source tonight is the Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, who is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and also sits on the House Oversight Committee. So thank you for being here tonight. In addition to your titles, you also have 56,000, I think, federal workers in your home state of Ohio, 6,000 in your district alone. Do you think that
the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
Yeah. Do you think that they should all be getting back pay?
Well, I think people are working, certainly. I mean, the way, people who are furloughed who aren't essential, I think that's a different question. But the way to solve this is for Chuck Schumer to open the government, for Chuck Schumer to vote for what he did 6 months ago, and then you don't have to deal with this question. But where I come from, if the truck driver's not driving a truck, he doesn't get paid. If the guy who hangs drywall is not hanging drywall, he doesn't get paid. So I think that's a different question than certainly the people who are working every day during this shutdown caused by Chuck Schumer. But the question is moot if Chuck Schumer would simply do what he did 6 months ago, do the common sense thing, vote for the level of spending that he and all the other Democrats agreed to just a few months ago.
So your stance is if you're going to work, you should get paid.
Certainly.
If you're at home, you should not get paid.
Well, I think that, no, what I'm saying is that's how most Americans see it, I believe. But it's a moot question if the Democrats will just do the right thing, if Chuck Schumer will just say, we're going to open the government. I voted for it 6 months ago. I mean, the real debate here
But actually, is it a moot point? Because they've already gone 1 week without getting paid. And if you're someone who's furloughed, which is you're told not to come to work, you're not choosing not to go to work. And, some of these, 1 in 6 Americans lives paycheck to paycheck. And that probably includes federal workers.
And Kaitlan, the easiest way for this to all get, the easiest remedy is the one that Chuck Schumer voted for 6 months ago. Open up the government. Open up the government. The real debate here is between Chuck Schumer and himself. 6 months ago, he picked common sense. Today, he's picking the radical left. 6 months ago, he voted for the level of spending. He won't do it today because, frankly, as we all know, he's nervous about the left, particularly AOC in a primary in a couple of years. So that is the real debate.
But this is actually a debate for these federal workers who have nothing to do with what's happening between Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill. They're caught in the middle of this, and they didn't bring on this shutdown. So why should they have to suffer and not get their back pay?
They don't have to suffer. Chuck Schumer opens the government. If Democrats will open the government, if they will vote for,
but if it opens tomorrow, they went a week without pay, right?
And President, I think they get paid. But I think the president's saying if this goes on, maybe there's this question. He's going to debate it, going to look at it. The other thing you got to keep in mind is, what are they supposed to do? A $37 trillion debt, and the Democrats refuse to open the government? What are they supposed to do? So I think that's the other thing you got to look at, and I think, frankly, that's how most, again, Americans who have common sense view the whole situation.
Yeah, but the debt has been there. It's been a problem in past government shutdowns, and the president signed that bill in 2019 to restore back pay for all these federal workers then, and you voted yes on that, actually.
And he may, in fact, do the same thing now. All I'm saying is, the easiest way to make sure this is not a concern for any people who are working or people who are furloughed, is for the Democrats to open the government.
But actually, when the bill was signed back in 2019 during that last shutdown, it wasn't just for that shutdown, it was for future shutdowns, so federal workers wouldn't get caught in this dispute between Republicans and Democrats.
Okay, fine. That's fine. That's what was signed back then. I think the same thing could happen this time. We'll see. But we know it's not a problem if the Democrats will do the right thing, the common sense thing, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to do what the hard left is demanding our party do, fight President Trump at every single turn. This is so darn simple. You voted for it 6 months ago. What's the difference now? I like what the vice president said. They're saying we're going to shut down the government because we're concerned about a policy difference that doesn't take effect for 3 months. Well, then open up the government. We don't have to worry about this question.
So if your position is what they voted for 6 months ago, they should vote again for now, right?
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty clear on funding the government.
Okay, so you voted in 2019 that federal workers who are furloughed should get their back pay. So why is your position different now?
It's not different now. It depends on what the president decides to do, and then what we pick up as Congress.
But it's a federal law, actually.
All I'm saying is most Americans say if you're working, you should get paid. If you're not, that's a different question. Now, in the past,
but that's not the law you signed. You didn't say when you voted yes on this that you voted for in 2019. You didn't say the caveat. If they're working, they get paid. It said all furloughed workers
I'm
get paid.
I'm just commenting on what the president said, and I think the easiest way to remedy this is what I've said now several times. Chuck Schumer, open up the government.
Yeah, but I'm talking about what you voted for. So if your position is still then it's that furloughed workers who aren't going to the office
And we
should
may,
get
in fact,
paid.
vote for that again, because I think it would take a change in the law to undo what we did back in 19.
Okay, so on these subsidies that you're talking about, that's what Democrats are basically saying is their chief demand here. They expire soon. You do have people in your district who are in the Obamacare marketplace. I think it's about 36,000 of them, unless you have a different number. Do you believe that the subsidies should be expanded so premiums don't go up?
I think what we got to focus on is Chuck Schumer opening the government up, and then we can deal with that question. What I do know about Obamacare is everything they told us about Obamacare a decade ago when they passed this thing turned out to be false. They told us that, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. They told us if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. They told us premiums will go down. I think the President Obama actually said premiums will go down on average $1,500. They were 0 for 4. Everything they told us turned out to be false. And then what they did back at the start of COVID, they said, we're going to expand Obamacare. Everything we told you about it was false, but we're going to expand it with this enhanced tax credit, this subsidy. And then again, they renewed it and said, we're not only going to expand it, we're going to extend it. And now they want to extend it again. And Hakeem Jeffries said 1 year is not enough. We got to do it for 2 years, or we're not even going to discuss anything. So I think that's the history. And I think, again, most people in our district, most people in the 4th District of Ohio, most Americans around the country think that makes no sense. Let's figure out how we can do health care better for all Americans. Let's not keep subsidizing, expanding, and extending Obamacare when, again, when you look at what they told us, it all turned out to be false.
So you're against extending the subsidies?
Yeah, I think that's a problem. I think we should look for other ways to improve health care for Americans, for families, and do it at a cheaper cost.
What could you do in the next 3 months that would change
Let's
that?
have that debate, but right now we can't.
Senator Bernie Sanders, I think, would like to have that debate with you.
Let's have that debate. We're for health savings accounts. We're for empowering people. We're for catastrophic health plans, making it easier access to. We're for all those things that we think empower people and patients, not insurance companies, not hospitals, we're for doing that, empowering people.
Yeah, but Republicans who have wanted to get rid of Obamacare for so long, you're one of them. You said the subsidies before you believed were illegal. They have never introduced a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare. So I think most Americans who are saying open enrollment starts November 1st don't have faith that you're going to change that in the next 6 weeks.
So the remedy, so you think the remedy is just keep extending a program that has driven up premiums?
No, I'm asking what the
didn't
change
meet
should be.
any of the statements that the proponents of it made didn't come true, and we just need to keep expanding and extending and extending and expanding.
That's not what I said. I asked what your replacement is, because
I'm for all those. I'm for health savings accounts. I'm for easier access to catastrophic plans. I'm for all kinds of things that will help families actually have more control, more decision making in the process. And by the way, the subsidy, 40% of the people don't even use it, and the individual Americans don't know. It goes directly to the insurance company, and many of those people have never had a claim. That is a concern with how this thing works. So
when Collins pointed out that 36,000 people in Jim Jordan's district could see their premiums go up, all she asked was a straight question: should the subsidies be renewed so those families don't get hit with higher costs? And the first name out of his mouth was Chuck Schumer. Not yes, not no, not even here's what I'm trying to do for them. Just Schumer. Here's why that matters. Those 36,000 people aren't choosing to be part of a political fight. They rely on the ACA marketplace for their health coverage. Once the subsidies expire, their premiums could jump. These are his own constituents in Ohio's 4th District. And the question was simple: do you support extending the subsidies? That deserves a clear answer. Families need to know whether their representative is trying to prevent their costs from rising or if he's fine with letting them increase. That's not a Republican or Democrat issue. That's a "can I pay for my health care next month" issue. But instead of addressing that, the discussion got dragged into old complaints about Obamacare. Yes, some of those criticisms from years ago are fair to debate, but none of them change what happens in a few months when those subsidies run out for the people depending on them. Then Collins backed it up with facts. She mentioned how Republicans, including Jordan, spent years calling for Obamacare to be repealed. But in all that time, they've never put forward a complete, detailed replacement plan. Not a bill, not something scored by the CBO, just general ideas like health savings accounts or catastrophic coverage. Those aren't full plans, they're concepts. And concepts don't tell a single one of those 36,000 people whether they'll still be able to afford coverage when enrollment opens on November 1st. That's the real problem here. There's no replacement plan ready. There's no clear answer on what happens next, just broad talking points that don't address the immediate concern. Will people still have affordable premiums once the subsidies expire? Collins pressed that question several times. I counted 3, and each time the response shifted to something else. Schumer, old Obamacare debates, or vague policy ideas. Everything except the position on whether those constituents are protected. And that's the part that stands out. When someone asks about the people you represent, and your first reaction is to bring up another politician's name, it seems like the political battle matters more than the families who actually need help. Those families don't have time for this to get sorted out later. They need answers now. And after all that back and forth, it still wasn't clear where their congressman actually stands.
The Democrats' plan is, let's extend it another 2 years. Well, that makes no sense. Let's have a debate on how we can do health care better.
So that's true that it goes to the insurance companies, but that helps keep the premiums low because it pays off the balance, basically. And the concern, disagree or agree with the subsidies themselves, is that if premiums jump, people can't afford it, they don't have health care. And then the burden on people who are sick and need that coverage is higher.
I tell you what the Democrats want. The Democrats want health care for people who are non-citizens. That's driving up health care costs too.
Don't change the subject from the subsidies.
No, the subject is you're talking about health care, and all I know is Maxine Waters said we want health care for illegal immigrants.
But I'm talking about the subsidies themselves,
every single Democrat presidential candidate back in 2020, they asked them, how many of you will support health care for people who are non-citizens, for illegal immigrants? Everyone on stage raised their hand. Kamala Harris raised her hand. Joe Biden raised his hand. Pete Buttigieg, they all raised their hand. That's what they're for. That's what they want here in this bill.
But that's we went through all this with House Speaker Mike Johnson last week, trust me. But my point was on the subsidies themselves.
You went through because that's their position, and we're opposed to that position. We don't think that is. We don't think that's common sense. We don't think that's good for the country. We don't think that's the right approach. What we do think is we can have a debate on what's better for health care, but we don't think extending and expanding Obamacare and giving it to illegal migrants is going to help the subsidies. How's that going to help the families I represent?
To stay on the subsidies.
Even people who are in Obamacare. How's that going to help them? To stay on the
subsidies, which I'm talking about.
No, how's that going to help them? How's that going to help them?
Your fellow Congresswoman, Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, has a very different opinion than you on this, and she said that she's carving her own lane. She's disgusted that health insurance premiums will double if the tax credits expire this year, and she says not a single Republican leader in leadership has talked to us about this or given us a plan to help Americans with their health insurance premiums doubling. Is that true that no one in Republican leadership is having conversations about what to do about this?
We are focused on getting the government back open right now, and Chuck Schumer is the impediment to doing that. Chuck Schumer is the one who's making this keep people from working, the potential that some of these furloughed people can't get back to work. He's the one doing that. He's the one who's raising this issue. Open up the government. We'll be happy to debate and discuss health care.
But what is that? November 1st is open enrollment, so what does that look like?
This policy doesn't kick in. This change in policy doesn't expire until the end
December
of the calendar
31st.
year. Until the end of the calendar year. We got time to work with it. And we're happy to do that. We're happy to do that. But to me, the answer is not extending and expanding Obamacare, which again, everything we were told about Obamacare turned out not to be true. And the Democrats' position is we're going to extend it and expand it. I don't think that makes sense.
If the government reopens tomorrow and these subsidies expire and they don't get extended, because you're not going to vote to extend them as you've made your policy clear right here.
It depends.
What do Americans do when their premiums go up?
Depends on what other changes happen to health care that actually empower families, not empower government, not empower insurance companies. Are we going to expand the ability to health savings accounts, people to have better control of their health care, more catastrophic plans where they're much cheaper plans? Are we going to do those kind of things that I think are good for families or not?
But Marjorie Taylor Greene says that Republican leadership is not having a conversation about what to do about that if these subsidies don't get extended.
We have conversations about health care all the time in this town. It's like one of those issues we talk about a lot, and the Democrats always want more government, which leads to higher costs and I think reduced, not the same quality of care. So we're happy to talk about what happens in the future, but let's take one step at a time. Let's open up the government.
Collins had to jump in and say it plainly. Don't change the subject. She asked Jim Jordan a simple question. Should the subsidies be extended so 36,000 people in his district don't see their premiums rise? Instead of answering, he shifted to talking about health care for undocumented immigrants. Collins stopped him because that wasn't the question at all. The topic was his own constituents and whether their costs would go up. And this happened over and over again. Every time Collins brought up how the subsidy expiration would affect families in Ohio, the response shifted to Chuck Schumer, immigration or complaints about Obamacare from years ago. None of that addressed what those people will face when the subsidies run out. Then Collins brought out something important. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican in Jordan's own party, said she's upset that premiums could double if the subsidies expire. She also said Republican leadership hasn't provided members with any plan to help those families. No discussions, no roadmap, nothing. That's not a Democratic talking point. That's a Republican saying the conference isn't dealing with the issue. Jordan's answer? Again, he blamed Schumer. Collins pressed him. Greene says no one is talking about solutions. Jordan said they talk about healthcare all the time. Those two statements don't match. If leadership really had a plan, Greene wouldn't be publicly saying the opposite. And that's the real takeaway. With open enrollment starting November 1st and subsidies ending December 31st, the clock is ticking. People need to know what happens to their premiums in a matter of weeks. Instead, the discussion kept shifting away from that basic question. Immigration, Schumer, old Obamacare debates. Everything except the actual issue facing those 36,000 people. That's why Collins saying don't change the subject mattered so much. It pointed to exactly what was happening. She asked what will happen to her constituents when the subsidies expire and never got a direct answer.